The legend of the Pharaoh's curse is one of the terrifying myths that have sparked widespread debate around the world. This is due to the mystery and the abundance of strange stories we hear about it, and we always see the Pharaoh's curse associated with disasters. Whether it is seen as bad luck or leads to mysterious and inexplicable deaths, all of these phenomena ultimately come down to one fundamental reason: disturbing the deceased mummy. And its curse doesn't discriminate between us or even the world of antiquities. Some say that priests in ancient Egypt practiced rituals that involved a type of magic. This was accomplished by carefully fortifying tombs with powerful spells intended to protect the mummies and their valuable possessions from thieves, particularly the mummies of kings. And we have seen numerous texts carved into pharaonic tomb walls that distinctly warn of a powerful curse if anyone disturbs the sacred resting place of the deceased. For example, Victory says that death will strike with its heavy wings anyone who disturbs the peace of the king, and we have seen many examples of the Pharaoh's curse. Among them is the curse of King Tutankhamun, which we discussed in a previous episode, and more recently, the curse of the royal mummies. Before the transfer of 22 royal mummies from the Egyptian Museum to the Museum of Civilization, a series of tragic events occurred, such as a collision between two trains in Sohag, the grounding of a Suez Canal ship, and a series of collapses in some properties. Some believe that these events are not mere coincidences, but are a pharaonic curse caused by offending the kings, and we have seen many other accounts about pharaonic curses. Among the most notable is the curse associated with Princess Amen-Ra, also known as the Mummy of Bad Luck. Her name is linked with one of the most notorious pharaonic curses in history, a curse that has caused the death of over 1,500 people. To the extent that researchers in its case say it has caused the death of everyone who spoke about it, touched her coffin, or even took a picture of her. So, what is the story of this mummy? What are the events that led to this curse in detail? And how is it connected to the deaths of such a number of people? This is what we will find out in our video today. Before delving into the file details, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell, ensuring our videos reach you immediately after upload. By examining the detailed wooden cover of the ancient mummy's coffin and the inscriptions inscribed on it, researchers are able to date the mummy to the period from 900 to 950 AD. Before Christ, roughly within the span of the late 21st dynasty and the early 22nd dynasty, the short hieroglyphic inscriptions surface on the coffin's lid. These findings indicate that the mummy belonged to a priestess serving within the Amnera temple. However, the specific name remains unknown. And so they named her Princess Amen-Ra, a figure shrouded in mystery and a powerful curse that ultimately led to a devastating series of disasters. Now, let us recount the entire story. The intriguing story began in the year 1910, when an English scientist named Douglas Murray purchased the ancient mummy. He bought it from an unidentified American seller for about $4,000, which was, of course, a very cheap price for obtaining an original Egyptian mummy. After acquiring the mummy, it was smuggled out of Egypt, specifically to Britain. Let me tell you that at that time, artifact smuggling was unfortunately very common, and from there, a series of major curses began to occur. The first, for example, was that the American man died on the very night he sold the mummy and didn't even manage to cash the check. And not only that, this curse caused the death of 2 workers under mysterious circumstances. These workers were the ones who carried the mummy to Douglas Murray. After that, the curse continued, and Doug Morris also fell under its spell. On the same night he bought the mummy, he went on a hunting trip. However, while engrossed in hunting, the gun exploded in his hand for no apparent reason, and he was subsequently taken to the hospital, where he suffered agony due to the wound in his hand. This eventually resulted in his arm being completely paralyzed, and from there, Doug Morris realized that the mummy had something wrong with it. Therefore, he decided to get rid of it once and for all, by any means necessary. He offered the mummy to his girlfriend as a gift, which she gladly accepted. However, it was the worst decision for her, as she was afflicted with 3 curses. The first was, for example, the death of her mother. Secondly, her engagement was broken off in the same week she acquired the mummy. And thirdly, a few days later, she personally died under mysterious circumstances. Afterward, the mummy returned to Doug Morris, who realized that the mummy was filled with evil and vengeance. Most likely, his turn was coming next. But he thought of another idea, which was to donate it to the British Museum. After donating it to the museum, he assumed the problem was solved, but a series of other curses occurred. On the same day the museum received the mummy, the archaeologist responsible for its reception died from a strange disease, and not only him, but also the curator in charge of the exhibits at the museum after he touched the coffin. He also died, including the museum photographer who, after taking pictures of the mummy, died under mysterious circumstances, and some also say he committed suicide. And the matter hasn't stopped until now. The curator of the British Museum and some of its staff tell that they were hearing sounds of moaning and crying. coming from the depths of the mummies at night due to this series of incidents. The British Museum decided to permanently dispose of the mummy by sending it as a gift to the New York Museum. Of course, this was done without informing the officials at the New York Museum about all the obscure events that occurred. This was to prevent raising suspicion and them rejecting the acceptance of the mummy. Indeed, the transfer of Princess Amenrahot's mummy began. In 1912, the significant event was carried out via the first voyage of the famous Titanic ship as it sailed towards America. But unfortunately, the famous tragedy of the ship sinking occurred due to its collision with an iceberg, which unfortunately resulted in the deaths of more than 1,500 people. However, some writers and researchers have a different opinion on the matter and believe that the real reason for the ship's sinking is the curse of Princess Amenrahot's mummy. This placement situated her sarcophagus behind Captain Smith's private cabin, and from this location, visitors could easily view it. Triggered a series of strange behaviors from Captain Smith. The following account is narrated by the granddaughter of one of the survivors from the ship's crew, who says that her grandfather noticed from the start of the voyage that Captain Smith was doing very strange things, such as handling the ship's wheel. It was steered in the wrong direction. The ship's captain, before it collided with the iceberg, knew and saw it ahead. He could have easily avoided this disaster and saved the ship from sinking into the turbulent waters, but in the end, he chose to steer the vessel at a dangerously frantic speed, ultimately causing its downfall. He kept relentlessly pushing the powerful engines towards the massive iceberg, even though he knew that if he had slowed down, the inevitable disaster could have been less severe. Thus, the losses in the situation would have been relatively lower, but he actually intended to deliberately collide with the iceberg at that specific speed to make the losses greater, as if a strange curse had taken over the ship's captain, and unfortunately, in the end, the ship crashed into the mountain. The greatest maritime tragedy occurred with the sinking of the Titanic, claiming more than 1,500 lives. Isn't this story great? What's even better is the opportunity for a movie to be created about it, which would certainly succeed and generate very high revenues, but is it real? Let's look at the opponent's evidence that completely discredits this narrative. The first evidence is Margaret Kegel's in her book, Treasures of the British Museum. And according to a museum official, no mummies have ever been brought into the museum from the beginning. So all that was present was her ornate wooden coffin, or rather, the narrowest part inside the coffin structure, which was officially donated to the museum in the year 1889. The account comes from a woman named Warwi. In the end, it wasn't Douglas Morey who generously donated either the mummy itself or even the accompanying coffin used for its preservation. Secondly, someone might tell me that even if the mummy wasn't transferred from the museum due to its absence, her coffin that left the British Museum and reached the ship to ensure the curse's activation. From here, I'll tell you that neither the coffin nor even the mummy were originally present on the ship. And the indisputable evidence of that is that the coffin's original panel is still present and on display in the British Museum, and you can easily go visit it yourself. And you will find it with the serial number 22542, thus nothing was removed from the museum in the first place. Unless the coffin emerged from the ocean floor and went to the museum, which of course is something that cannot be accepted by reason or logic. As for the location of the original mummy, Dr. Zahi Hawass published an article in Asharq al-Awsat newspaper in 2012 titled The Titanic Mummy, which falsely claimed a connection between the curse of Amun-Ra and my Titanic ships, because during his visit to deliver a lecture in Ireland, the mummy of the priests of Amun-Ra must be preserved inside a museum at the University of Ireland, which was donated by an American millionaire to the university after he had planned to transfer it to America on the Titanic's second voyage, but he didn't manage to take it because the Titanic sank on its first voyage. Hence, the American millionaire became pessimistic about the mummy. Especially after the stories that were recounted about its curse, he indeed decided to donate it to the University of Ireland Museum, thus the mummified sarcophagus. And adding to that, the carefully documented words of Charles Hayes, who is considered the head of the committee responsible for uncovering the detailed and accurate facts about the sinking of the Titanic. He thoroughly reviewed the ship's passenger list, meticulously checking every single entry, and found absolutely nothing indicating that a mummy or a shroud was aboard the vessel. Thus, we can say the matter turned out to be merely a legend, but supporters of the theory that the ship sank due to the curse don't remain silent, of course. He stated that the cause of the curse is not the princess's mummy or even her shroud. The reason for the curse is the journalist William Stead. He was aboard the ship and ultimately perished by sinking into the ocean's depths. So, what is this journalist's story? According to Al-Najim's account of the Titanic sinking disaster, they say that William Stead told some of them about the Egyptian mummy's curse before the night the ship sank and how it brings misfortune and death to anyone who possesses it. and because of his account, he and the ship he was on sank due to its curse. In other words, they couldn't prove the curse's existence through the presence of a mummy or her shroud. So they want to prove it only by talking about it, meaning I, as Iyad, after narrating the story of the mummy and its curse. Supposedly, the microphone you were speaking into hit my face, and when I awoke, the house collapsed on me. Or if any misfortune happens in my life, of course, in my view, it's illogical and doesn't make sense honestly, but in the end, what matters to me is your opinion on the topic. Do you really think that the mummy's curse is the reason for the sinking of the Titanic, and for a series of deaths of everyone who owned it? Please write your opinion in the comments. With that, we have finished our file today. Please, if you liked it, press like and share it with your friends so they can watch it too. And this, of course, will be a great support for us. Also, let us know what you want us to make more episodes about in the upcoming period. And we'll see you well in an upcoming file, God willing. Peace be upon you.